what, if anything, has happened or changed in the legislature over the past week since we were in this room 6 days ago. And the answer is yes, quite a lot is happening. I think that it is fair to say that the environment in the legislature is highly dynamic and that something will happen. Can't tell you with any kind of promises. I think that we're not in a position in any way to say, we promise this scenario will happen or that scenario will happen. That's how it is. But there is a lot of activity. You know, many of us were in meetings over the weekend and then in meetings tomorrow and in meetings today. And there's a lot happening. And I think that there is a considered effort to make something happen by those in the legislature in the position to do so. So with that, with the guidance from last week, with the meeting of the facility committee, and thanks to those who joined as well, Laura has looked at 2 scenarios per expenditure amount. Looking at the 9171 yield, which the Agency of Ed put out the beginning of the season after the holidays. And then looking at the 9452 yield, which is what the December 1 letter put out as the yields that we should be looking at for the purpose of budgeting. Laura polled state business officials to see what they were doing. It's pretty much 50-50. Maple Run is using 9452. Others are using 9171. So I think that is one of the first things the board is going to have to decide is where they think they should be looking as that divider. And then look at the various scenarios that we have in front of us and see which one matches. And of course, none of them need to match. So if everybody likes a certain direction, but boy, if we added a certain amount of money on that so that we could do one more thing, boy, I'd feel more comfortable. Or I like this, but if we took a little off, right? So anything in between we can do too. In the end, we need to land on an expenditure budget number. So with that, highly dynamic.
Do we want to talk about the yield first so that I can start with those scenarios, or would you rather I run through all of them?
I'd rather talk about the yield.
Yeah, I
talk to some people about the yield.
I think we should have a conversation on that first.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's not a conversation.
Okay.
For me, I guess I do not know which number to use. The best thing I could think of to do, as Julie said, was to poll, and I got 31 responses, and that's the results. Every meeting that we are in with our ear to the ground is that no one knows. So I think somewhere in the middle of the 9600 and the 91 might be the safest way to go, even though that's not necessarily worst case scenario. 9171 would be like the worst case scenario tax rate wise, but I don't think it will land there. I think it will be higher.
Yeah, I've come away this week and now seeing this, which again, just gives the conclusion that we have no clue. I think in my mind, I'm now shifting to, do we have a full expenditure budget that accomplishes all the things we want to accomplish as a district? We can't target a 5% in any way. We honestly can't, at this point, go forward and tell the public what the tax rate is going to be with any amount of confidence. So I guess that's where I am on the yield, is I'm just throwing up my hands at this point and saying, okay, if we look through this list, knowing we kind of have a range of tax impacts, ignoring there's any cap at all, am I comfortable with, scenario 1 of, probably a tax rate change between these 2 numbers, same for 2, 3, and 4. So I don't know. That's how I'm thinking about it. Don, did you say you had some thoughts on it?
Well, yesterday I had a chance to talk with 2 legislators who aren't just legislators. They have a fair amount of clout. And they didn't tell me what yield they were talking about, but this was a statement made. I think they said in the past 20 years, we've always gone with whatever the December 1 number said. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it seems like most years did. And that if there's any change to happen, they think that that's probably, they'll stay with the yield, because the tax commissioner has the authority to announce that. That this agents of education should not get in the mix. They are. They've created confusion,
Yeah,
and they may have clout, but the agency of ed hasn't had clout in the legislature for a long, long time. That's one of the agencies, so I'm not saying we should go with that, but that was some information that two different ones shared with me. And I bumped into them at a flea market in Barry, Vermont. But anyway, so that's where I am on the whole thing. Whatever we come up with, I'll certainly support it. But I thought that was a pretty good rationale if the legislature is struggling to fall back to what the first announcement was would be the fairest thing to do. So we'll see. I could be dead wrong. The other thing is there's plenty of money there in the ed fund, right? I just, you're not hearing that?
Well, it depends on what we do.
depends
Which
on
meeting you go to,
who
John.
you're speaking, Don. There is definitely higher than expected revenue in the ed fund, and the JFO
You know,
did
before,
report that.
poor choice of word, but there's money coming down.
Higher than anticipated revenue coming in.
That's it, what, yeah.
But there's also higher than anticipated spending coming in, and we can expect action, but I, you know, all we can control is what we do in this room tonight, really.
So Laura, so just so I'm tracking what we're looking at, we have 4 different scenarios that can be interpreted 2 separate ways, depending on which you use. Right, okay. So whichever one we pick, we're guessing on what that yield would bring, but really we just have 4 scenarios in front of us.
And like Julie said, you can go anywhere in between. This is just setting some, some context for you. I tried to be very specific with the projects based on the prioritization of the facility task force. The ones that are in blue, there is really not any negotiation there. Those projects have to happen, so that's important to know. So the MVU roof phase 2, the contract has been signed. We had to do that to fit the timeline. And then the other are mostly grant funded projects that we've already agreed to, and these are just a small local share, so I don't think we can get out of that either, or that we should. Keeping in mind, I just wanted to highlight for you just one thing. If you go over to, actually, it's only with the 9171, so I won't even go there if we're using 9452. But one of the scenarios, the last scenario with a level tax rate with a 9171, would involve all cuts not only to our capital line, but to other areas too, because we have to fund these 4 projects. And so if we're using the lower yield, then we would have to make about $600,000 worth of other cuts too, above and beyond the capital line. So that wouldn't be a great place to be. If the board was choosing to have a level tax rate, but with 9452, that it's more.
More capacity
yeah.
there.
So the reason I picked the second scenario, the 5.51%, is because it's exactly half of the increase that we can draft 7. I just thought that might make sense. Keeping in mind also under the first scenario with the 9452, if you're looking at the projects, I just wanted to point out that the MVU parking lot resurfacing and phase 1 of the parking lot resurfacing and the lighting improvements, that number is bigger than you've seen before. There was more capacity, so the other projects are pretty set in their cost. That would be the one where we were just going to do whatever we could do, so I added to it. The other option would be to go find another project that's on our capital plan, but at least it gives you the amount of money there. So just pay attention, I guess, draw your attention to the MVU parking lot resurfacing. Amounts may change from scenario to scenario, I guess is the point there.
So the 468 that's there, is that also different than the original proposal? Again, I'm looking at the.
Which one are you on? The second one up at the top, or the 9171?
Yeah, is that also just scaled to fit?
Yes. And then the other thing I did want to point out, due to the landscape right now and the uncertainty, I had been not as conservative as I usually am with anticipated revenues. And one of the things that they're asking a lot of questions about is special ed, this change in special ed and the change in special ed revenue. So it's making me very nervous. I was already nervous because it was such an increase with the extraordinary reimbursement. But now with all the questions they're asking about that, I'm not sure. I have no faith in that, or that's not going to change, because I've also gotten emails saying that there's they might put in some kind of a cap so it has a ceiling, because they're realizing that there's too much revenue going out with the second part of the calculation. Whether or not that happens next year, I don't know, but they're asking enough questions that I dropped that revenue about $250,000. And I also reduced the interest revenue by $100,000, just not knowing what rates are going to do or what we might borrow at. So hopefully that's okay with you. I'm just honestly becoming concerned about the uncertainty of things.
Just today, they sent a request for data in a week that has all of our FTEs and staff student ratios and all of our extraordinary cost students and how many kids we have and how many kids are awaiting placements and
Mental health.
capital costs, like all the things that the agency needs to collect data on for this legislative session so they can.
And they want it by the 7th of February.
So it's a tight timeline, but that just gives you a window into what they're being asked to provide. So yeah,
So that change in revenue, there dictated a reduction of the capital line of $350,000 to offset the revenue, so it didn't increase the budget further, so.
So as for the 9171 versus 9452,
Sorry, Jeremy. Where are you looking to go?
9452 is not the first December one.
it is the December,
Yeah.
yeah, that, you know,
All
we've
the
heard from,
scenarios are using that.
I heard you say a few minutes ago, there was somewhere, it shows a number somewhere.
Well, between the 9,600 that the JFO did put out 9,600 on their document with the, outlook. So
that's not gonna stay there.
what I was saying is 94 is in between those two giant numbers, yeah.
I thought you came up with
Yeah.
a number.
I don't disagree with you, though. December 1 letter has always been what we have utilized. It's just the AOE has never done what they did before and announced this other number, but I don't disagree with your point on it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only entity that has officially told us what to use as a budgeting tool. So, I mean, we've heard from a couple people.
Toby, your thoughts? I want to
Um,
call on everybody. I want to hear everybody's thoughts.
yeah, I would, I don't have any thoughts right now. That's my thought.
I like what we came up with at our meeting, this facilities meeting the other night. I think it looks probably closest to the third one with the one that's under the 9171 yield. As far as projects that we looked at, if we put as a priority, because it gives us the Highgate brick building roof replacement, which is critical, and it also gives us a Swanton Babcock HVAC system, which is a lease. So that would be that much for is it 5-year lease, 10-year lease.
If we can get it through the bond bank, that, yeah.
Okay. So I've kind of thrown out the 5% thing and trying to hit it. I listened to the meeting over the weekend. My goodness, it's so in flux. I mean, it's like, I don't think we can even count on that legislation, because it seems to me it has to change. There's some districts that are in really dire straits out there. I don't think they can leave it that way. I think that we need to budget, knowing we can get some really good things done and still be fair to our taxpayers. I think what we have on there is a really good budget. My fear is we try too much. We try to add the MU parking lot, which needs to be done, and some of these other things. and we get it voted down. And then we're no longer really choosing what we want to cut, because a lot of these things are gonna be made for us. I'm sure the Highgate roof replacement will be off the table, because they're not gonna wait till May or June to sign a contract to do a roof this summer. Paving, if we tried to get that in there, if it didn't pass, town meeting day, you know, they're looking to set prices in March, and paving season's short. We can, you know, they start in May, and in a good year, they can get to October. This project, being at the school, is gonna need to be done this summer. They're gonna wanna have that tied up, they're gonna want that contracted. So I think if we try for too much, we could end up shooting ourselves in the foot and not being able to get done some of these projects we need to get done. My other fear is if we go too big and then we come back and it gets rejected again. What kind of projects, what happens, Laura? We have to go with last year's budget into the new
It's
fiscal
rejected.
year.
At a certain point, you get 87% of the prior year's budget.
So we're probably not doing too many projects on that.
Nope. Yeah, no. Until you pass a budget, that's how it works.
Until you're possible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So hopefully, well, it's good.
Right.
It's just a lot of projects in the district happen in the summer when school's not happening.
So I don't know if I have comments or questions. It's just,
Zero.
it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. I appreciate Peter's comments. I'm trying not to let like the 5% take away from the needs. The letter that was sent out a couple weeks ago is also on my mind, you know, like if we do get a review, you know, will our taxpayers have to pay the extra? Like, it's just a lot of uncertainty, which is for everyone. So I guess there's comments. So I'm gonna call this scenario 3, the one that Peter was talking about. If we include these capital projects, we're at a flat 5%. If we were to pass,
We don't know that.
no, because of the yield. Let's.
If you're choosing
It's
this yield.
difficult enough for me as it is. So if this yield stays, and these are the projects, you know, that are in, we're at a 5%. So this, for the lack of a better word, secures for what we know today for, you know, next year, if we needed to do some other capital projects or we needed to also increase, there would be.
Theoretically, it would, but I really wouldn't hang your hat on that, because if that yield changes $5, you don't need the cap anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
You sort of have to not think about the cap at this point. Just, I mean, it's really about, do you think we should be conservative? Should we use the December first divisor as the 9452, which is a more average number, or should we use the Agency of Ed one, which is more conservative than will likely happen? You know, those are and then we can get at, now, boy, scenario 3 with this divisor is, you know, close to what we want, but not what we want. It's really our first step. Kelly?
Yeah, I agree with what Peter and Joanne have been saying, with what scenario 3 was. I'm kind of sharing the same concerns that everybody else has already mentioned, about there just being a lot of uncertainty, but it doesn't really seem like we're going to get much certainty before we have to make a decision. So I think we're all just trying to make the best decision that we can with the information that we have. I think that's all that we can really do. So yeah, I'm I agree with that.
Thank you. Brenna?
I appreciate what Peter's saying. It makes a lot of sense looking at it. I think my point of view is just slightly different. I'm not looking necessarily at the yield because to me, that's an unknown. I'm looking strategically. I think that there is an equal amount of chance that any budget that we propose passes or fails. And given the climate and all the things that we don't control, and a lot of the feelings and language, I kind of have an inverse fear that if we put out a budget, a modest or right at the tax level, and that doesn't pass, it leaves us nowhere to go. And, you know, this is a pretty crucial year because what happens this year will affect the next 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And whoever's on the board at that time will have to deal with whether or not we were able to somehow grow and keep pace or whether we really just fall behind. And I'm speaking as a taxpayer too. I have multiple homes in Highgate and Swanton. You know, for the benefit and the expansion and growing, and I think the needs that it provides to the community, you know, if my taxes went up $50, $60, $70 a month, you know, at this point, that's a take of gas for me. And so I just think that a modest budget increase for us leaves us way behind other districts, even close ones. And I think that I only deal in knowns, and what's known is that we do have Act 127 effective now. And I would not feel comfortable if what we pass somehow ends up falling short of that. If it gets taken away down the road, it does. I think if we have scenario 1 and it doesn't pass, you know, we will have a lot more information that we can come to the table with after town hall day. And the board at that time can elect to make some of these cuts, but at least they have some room to cut. I think if we barely get by, we barely squeak in, you know, under that 5%, I think it's a missed opportunity to potentially grow for some of the services that some of our students and staff, because we support a lot of people that work here in the community. So my thoughts is I would go with the original draft 7 or whatever we have here. We put that forward. We don't know what yield we can use. And the big thing I would point to is that even that one, the equalized tax rate still puts us under 2020 tax rate. So that is my opinion.
Or do you have somewhere handy MVU roof phase 3 cost? So it would be the FY26.
Yep.
So I'm thinking about how we move from a 25 to 26 capital budget. Knowing we've got a big MVU parking project, which could be $1 million. And so if we were to do scenario 3 as it stands,
You mean,
sorry, yes, this one here,
I had the number that.
with the 2.4 million capital. If we were to do that as it stands, we'd have MVU phase 3, which is
If we chose to do that phase, it would be 755-ish.
755 plus the original estimate of the MV parking lot is,
We had said 500,000 plus the 75 for the lighting, so 575
and that's
originally, but this I've added to some.
what would the whole parking lot project?
We have no
be?
idea.
We have no idea. So that
No,
would be.
no one will give us a price till March.
Oh, okay. So that would put us at FY26 already at 1.7, 1.8, cost probably about 1.9 million in capital on 2 projects. So that would leave us then only 500,000 of other projects. Plus, you know, before we're now asking for more capital than FY25.
What facilities has been talking about. We know that, if when we decide to do something with the Babcock School and not the central school, and within a year or two, we're gonna do that, so that's gonna be a project. Yeah, out there.
So that's got me, where my head is now is, like, it's probably a blend between the second column and the third column. Cause I think at 2.4, we're gonna have a hard time getting Don said some Babcock projects into 26. And we could take care of some, I think some visible work on the MVU parking lot would be a good investment.
Keeping in mind that there's currently a tank moving through the ground at Franklin, under the ground through the parking lot also. So that one's is also pretty up there, and the needs on the capital plan too, that's on our plan.
Right. For future
Swan is right behind it. Not to change your thinking, I'm just, parking lot wise, it's not just MVU or.
Yeah. But that's not on the Franklin parking lot's not on this at all. right?
No, it's not. Keeps getting pushed down the plan,
That's
yeah.
27.
Yeah.
Mhm. But also not, parking lots are not small.
No, they're not,
dollars,
no.
Paving is a good investment. In brush stock and paving companies.
I am personally stuck between 1 and 2.
Which way are we
We're
counting?
just going left to right here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
don't number them.
With the 9171 yield, I think that's what we've all been talking about, is the 9171 yield.
Oh, are we're back at around 9171.
Or we're,
No.
okay.
We're not making that one.
All right, so I was way off. I was looking at Renix.
Yeah.
The 94 gives us more spending capacity to keep the tax rate lower.
So-
and it's more.
Can we, with that said, I don't mean to interrupt, can we number them, because I'm having.
Yeah, I was like,
Can we go
I'm
like
looking at
1,
Renix
2,
little
3,
cheat sheet over
4,
here,
5,
thinking that's
6,
what we're,
7, 8.
Yeah.
yeah,
Alright.
all right,
And just when we're talking, we could all say that.
thank you.
Sorry.
4.
Listen, we're lucky. It took us half an hour to make.
So Renix, you were between 5 and 6, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
So so the only reason I don't like numbering it that way is because we're assuming we're going off of the yield. So like when we pass the budget, we're just passing a dollar amount. Right? Like we're not doing this based on yield. We just have to pick a general spending.
But they're slightly different.
they're
Like-
different
like-
because you got the 9171 here, which is,
They're different because we're using different theoretical yields that don't
Right,
exist.
yeah.
But like when we say the draft we want, we have to pick a dollar amount. a
Yes.
Spending increase.
Yes.
So so like, you know, saying 1 or 5 is essentially saying the same thing. It's just in our heads, we're making.
Yeah,
5.7.
okay. So,
So
I'm between the 3.1 and million, the total spend on scenario 2 and scenario 3, the 2.4.
okay. So I'm between the 5,777,000 and the 3,117,000. And so my concerns are if the budget doesn't get passed on the, if we were all to choose the 5,777,000 and the budget doesn't get passed, then we have to cut. We would be down, we could then go to the 3,117,000. I hate pushing it, what Dawn said at the last meeting of, you know, we're consistently pushing out projects that we can justify to the public and justify if we had to go in front of an audit. But then again, I'm also concerned about putting extra high tax dollars on taxpayers. Knowing also what's going on with Swan's taxpayers going through their minds with you know, the police department bills and their taxes being raised because of that.
I would just point out, I think I understand what Rennick was saying, but we are doing two things tonight.
Yes.
The article, or the warning is for adopting a budget, which is more than just a dollar amount, it's adopting a budget. But then the article, which is just the dollar amount. So I just think that's important for us to. And what that really means, I don't know, because we're not. I mean, this is like a summary, right? We're adopting a budget, but I guess I could pull it up too. So I just wanted to point that out, that we are doing two things tonight. One is the number for the article, but we're also adopting a budget.
So my question is, so if we go with scenario 3 with only the 249, 350 increase and the budget doesn't pass. Like now we're at a basically level tax rate, but we have none of the capital projects that we're trying to do.
I think you have to remember though, if you go higher and it doesn't pass, you're in the same scenario.
Well, not necessarily, because you have more room. You have more
You
room.
have room, but I'm not sure. The problem is we're budgeting for next year. And to get next year's projects in,
Yeah.
we've got to start now. So if it doesn't pass on town meeting day, I'm just afraid there's a bunch of projects that are off the table right off the bat.
But then we're taking them off. Yeah. Okay, so you're saying
What
you'd
I'm saying
rather
is
choose the one.
I'd like to get that roof in. And if we can make a reasonable budget that we can get past, we can get that roof in this year.
But you're assuming that passed. And I think.
I'm not assuming anything because you're right. There's a likelihood that it won't pass. I'm just trying to give ourselves the best possible shot to have it. Because we're gonna have a hard time building close to scenario 2 probably. If we don't pass a budget, because there's so many things that, it's just, most of the things have to happen in the summer. And I just don't know how we're gonna get contracts that late in the game.
Peter, what are you thinking about scenario 7? Which has the Highgate roof in it. It's still. Both,
But that-
you know,
That's quite a bit higher spending. Well, it's not that much, it's 49 to.
but that gives you somewhere to go, like,
Mhm.
It's that scenario with the yield of 94.52, or regardless, that scenario with the budget is very much in line with the strategy the board has had as far as the capital line, you know, adding to it each year a little bit. It's actually only adding $62,000 over last year.
Which one are you talking about?
The number 8.
Number 8?
I was talking about.
Oh, you're talking about 7? Oh, that was
That's good.
7 is adding, number 7, did you number them this way?
Yes, I was just looking at scenario 7 with a 94.52 yield, which gives us a little more tax capacity and allows the increase over FY 24 to be, you know, that it's still, it's less of a reduction from draft 7. I don't know, it's sort of a midpoint in some ways, and I know that you're all sort of looking back and forth with those. That has your desire, Peter, to have the brick roof replacement.
I personally, I haven't said much, but I'm leaning towards number 7. That's me. That's what I'm.
Between 6 and 7, what are we adding back in?
And it's a full MVU parking lot.
Not full, but more, yes.
Yeah, quite a bit more.
It could be full. I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, we don't know, yeah.
I have no idea what the total cost of that project is going to be.
So Jen is weighed in, is Megan online?
No,
She's,
has a family emergency she's gonna get as soon as she can.
She's seen this already. Okay, so if Jen is weighed in, it's my turn.
Yes. Just one quick second, Don. Is it, I cut up the total? For number 7,
Yeah, I wrote them down because.
because it's not on here. I just wanted, I'm curious.
Or can you scroll your screen up so they can see the bottom?
The,
It doesn't, yeah. That part?
I was just looking.
This is number 7, down here.
Okay, total, yeah. 3,000,000
For capital projects.
or 87, 30-ish.
Also, it's also up here, right here, I'm showing you,
Oh.
the total capital line increase over 24 plus the reduction from draft 7.
Oh, okay.
If that's
Sorry.
helpful.
Oh,
Yeah.
yep, got it. See it. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, I like that. Go ahead, Don.
I'm on number 6. That is what, 0.5% more on tax rate?
It's the tax rate's 5.51% increase
Yep.
in that one, with the 92.52. 94.52. Maybe that was like, maybe it's only really low. Combination.
I'd like to be on number 5, but I'm not sure there's enough support around the table to really pull that off. I mean, if right now we're 3, 4, I would go with number 5, but I think there may be only a couple of us. No sense taking one at a time if we don't have that kind of support.
the other thing too, I mean, we could do at some point, we can put the budget you want up for vote. If someone doesn't want it, we can vote it down and we can move on. If we go with scenario 7, Laura, is there a scenario where there's a yield number that could drop us below 5%?
Anything above 94.52.
It just,
I didn't mean to be snarky about that, I'm sorry.
wow, look at Joanne just coming in. She's like, Reddit, can you not do math?
No, not at all.
Wow.
At all.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, my arm hurts.
Sorry, Joanne. This is so heavy.
94.53.
Needed to lighten it a little bit.
I just,
Unfortunately, that's where you are.
it just, the idea that like right now, unless, because we don't know for sure they're changing act funds.
No, no.
All right.
No, we know nothing.
So we don't know they're gonna change it. To me, it would make more sense that whatever they decide to change, they do it for next year. And that just logically is what makes sense, is that they see all the turmoil it's caused and they enact legislation that's gonna begin for next year, given that half of the schools and half of the boards have already like passed budget, and then they still don't know what's gonna happen on town holiday. So to risk what we do know, which is we have a 5% cap for, 2 million, which we may have to cut off anyway, I just would feel more comfortable trying. And again, like, it's up to voters, and if they don't want to support that, then, we know that we can go in and we can make those cuts. And I understand what's being saying about like, we're gonna have to have certain things decided for us. The only counter to that is, my thought is that the way people are thinking about voting right now and all that stuff's going on is that it's not gonna really be about the budget. It's gonna be about everything else. And the fact that we're gonna see maybe their taxes going up, and they're not gonna understand that, like, we're only a very small portion of that. And so, if we message it right, we might have a chance of getting it through, and we have to take some things off. Because we could have this level tax rate, they're still gonna have a 15% or whatever it is because of the CLA, and they may be like, no. And like, then where do we go? Where does that board on March 15th go? That's what happens.
So my concern or my comment on the far left options, so 1 and 5 is, and I'm sorry, like, I know it was just a letter that was sent out, but if we do happen to go to a review and for some reason the review comes back where they don't feel our parking lot was a necessity, and then they're say like, oh yeah, your budget passed, but now your taxpayers have to pay the whole thing. I don't feel comfortable presenting this to our taxpayers for town meeting day, with that large increase. Like that's $2 million over on average, if not more, to the center 4 sections. You know, like I think we can work with a center 4. It's just, those are big numbers. 1 and 5 are, it's just, that's a big number.
So what if we did scenario 5 and then we just take out the MVU resurfacing? So it's like a new one.
Take it all the way out.
Well, we'll just take out the parking out of scenario 5.
But it's the parking lot and lighting improvements. And, well, I don't know, to me, the lighting improvements is a safety.
You really kind of need to do those together, if you're gonna do the parking lot.
Oh, do you?
Lighting. You don't wanna do it.
At least it's not.
Cost you a lot more. So what you're looking at basically is, about 52 million.
It would be, no, if you went with like a scenario 5 and you took out the 1,075,000, quick math, or what is that, 51?
I'm sorry, I was doing something else in my head.
You've got the parking, a new parking lot
Yeah,
and, you know, the
increase it.
lighting out of scenario 7. 5, sorry, scenario 5.
Take out the 1,075,000, all of it.
Yeah.
So, 75. I have to go back to a whole nother spreadsheet to make that happen, so.
I'm just gonna use
Trying
that.
to screen, probably.
I just.
Okay, good.
While we're thinking about that, I wanna go back to something Devin said a few minutes ago. We need to know that next year, we're going, regardless of what we come up with, we're gonna start next year's facilities on hold in the negative. That we're gonna have more needs than we have this year. Take all of them on it. So as we start to build next year's budget and we look at the facilities, if we don't do anything to the parking lot, that's gonna be $1 million. And then we've got another longer list of things that need to be done, including budget for the parking lot. So I think anything we can do to alleviate that total pressure on NVU is probably a wise move.
I don't disagree with what you said, Don. I just do want to point out what Peter was saying in regards to the timeline and contracts. That is it's a serious consideration. So there are things on this list that we would have to sign contracts for sooner rather than later. It's like March 6th. The Babcock HVAC, the Swan PA system, the brick building roof replacement, the fire alarm, the parking lot resurfacing, the Babcock roof, Swanton Central stuff, the Highgate HVAC, all of those would require contracts at the minute that the budget either passed or failed, just to keep that in mind. The other thing I feel like I should say, given the crazy environment we're living in, is we've just signed a contract for $675,000 to utilize surplus from the current year. If they decide to make a change to the special ed revenues for this coming year somehow, or they put in a cap that we didn't have, I'm a little bit concerned about utilizing more of the surplus. There was sort of a plan from the facility task force to use another few $100,000s to purchase the equipment for the Babcock HVAC, so we would only be financing the design and the installation, but we would buy the equipment out of cash from this year's surplus. I just want to remind you that that's still on the table, and that's something that you should also be thinking about if strategically that makes the most sense. Obviously, that means it would impact this list as well. But I'm becoming less comfortable, very uncomfortable with the environment. So that's just something you'll have to consider and make a choice on sooner rather than later, but impacts both years, I guess is what I'm saying.
And you know, if we didn't do this tonight and we have to, we'll be here next week, there'd be another level of anxiety. I mean, sooner or later, you have to bite the bullet.
Pick a number, yeah.
Make a number. And move it down. But I do like the comment, take this one, yeah. Devin said, something Remick said, of looking at number 5 minus the MVU parking lot.
So that would be, you were looking for a tax rate after that, Renee? What tax rate that would be? Is that what you were looking for?
No, I was,
Oh.
what was the total, what were you total amount?
The total budget amount?
Yeah, it's like 51.
51,797, 437.
And I'm always looking for a tax rate between 1302 and 1308. Which is more close to 1305.
This, if we take out the parking lot there, it's 1.34 with a 9452.
That's without a cap. Right.
No cap.
Yeah, is your scenario 6? It has, it has a,
Give me that number again. 1 tax replace tax rate.
I just put it there, but the actual is 1.3 without the cap. It's just information, I have to have both, is that what you mean?
well, I'm looking
It
at
equalizes 1.308.
1.308 is the equalized, okay.
On number 6.
But you have a different one. With number 7.
Right, because that's at 5%, this one's at 5.51. Number 6 is using 5.51, which is half of numbers that you use.
Oh, okay, number 7, you have the equalized tax rate and the tax rate with the cap at the same $3.03.
It would be because we're at the 5% tax.
That's
rate cap.
exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what starts to happen to me too, the longer you look at it, that's exactly what happens.
Toby, you got something?
Well, I don't really wanna bring it up, because we're gonna pass on the first try, but what's the, I mean, you can't, you have to, it's a significant amount of time to go to voters a second time. It's not like you can do it a week later.
No, you need at least 30 days.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, all this talk of contracts, and we're talking, we've already said, we've got, and I remember previous years, we had contracts ready to go. We were gonna, the day after we passed the budget, they were, so, that's just an interesting, another factor to consider, because a lot of those projects are summer projects, yeah, so.
So we won't be able to sign contracts comfortably in
Your
March.
facilities is 18 months.
I'm trying to get there, but we never, we just keep happening.
About 18 months.
Yeah.
And we would have a good. We're making progress.
That's exactly why though, Toby, we were trying to buy the equipment now out of surplus.
Yeah.
And then get the design, we have a full year for design and then do it the next year, that's exactly why, is to try to get into a cycle like that, where we're ahead.
But we're gonna pass this first time, so it's not, I shouldn't have even.
I mean, it's the one.
I like your positive attitude.
So I guess I'm curious, I'm looking at the total spend of scenario 2. It's kind of our sort of middle ground.
I'm sorry, Diane, what'd you say?
I'm still looking at the total spend, the 50.2 million that's in scenario 2. Can you do a quick straw poll on who's wanting higher and what one?
What's your measure? The 50?
50,212,437 total spend in scenario 2.
Where's that?
Number 2.
Number 2, total spend, top number.
Oh, so we're back with that yield?
I'm just, well, I'm looking at that total spend, ignore the
Right.
yield at the moment.
Okay, you're just looking at the.
I'm just wondering, around the table, someone's gotta make a motion, I'm wondering if we've got more higher, thinking higher than that, or more thinking lower than that at the moment.
I feel more comfortable if we started with scenario 6.
At the 50,779,000.
Huh.
Okay, that's where you are. Generally,
Higher than that.
you're in that same spot.
I was at 55, I was at 7, so I was at 10.
Okay, yeah, but no,
I'm at 5779 as my second choice.
okay.
I would be more comfortable with 57 than I am with 1 or 2.
What are we using for 57?
Fifth, scenario, total spend of scenario 5. No, 6.
6.
50
million.
points.
Oh,
50
50 point, I was
point
gonna say, I don't wanna say 57.
So you saying it's
5.7.
scenario 6, or is that somebody else saying? I'm trying to write.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Joanne saying that,
Oh, I'm sorry.
right, you were saying 50.7.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just saying I'm more comfortable with 5.7.
With what?
50.
The increase of 5.7 million, right?
Okay,
So
Scenario 6.
Devin's first question was who,
Yeah,
this, would people like to spend more or less than 5.2, right? Increase of 5.2, scenario 2.
yeah, yeah.
And then I don't know, Reddick chimed in, I'm sorry.
No, that's night for rent.
Okay, so you're on the higher side there.
I'm on the higher side, okay.
So you want scenario 6 as the number?
Peter, we.
I guess if I have.
Yeah,
to
no,
pick
it's
a number.
okay, I just want to kind of write it down and see, if they're trying to tally
Six.
I
things.
can't see going over that.
6.
Well, I
6.
So then,
Us 3,
Okay.
6 so far.
Rennick's at 6 too?
No, ideally,
He could
So you're
live with it
under
Monday.
scenario.
I
You
could,
ain't gonna get a deal with
Peter's wants
I
send
could
less
live.
than the scenario 2 number, less than the 50,212.
So
I'm probably,
Peter's 200,000 less.
Peter's, well,
I mean, we could back this one around, but I certainly would not go, I couldn't bring myself to go over that spending.
779.
Which scenario
No.
3 is the one you were looking
No,
at, right?
we're at the 50,212,000.
okay, so Peter can't go over to Devin, did you say you?
I haven't said yet, I'm waiting for what everybody else said.
Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm there, but.
I'm probably close to the 50 million too, maybe a hair under would be my ideal, but I'm just kind of in that range.
Toby, you said you'd be okay with scenario 6?
Yeah, I was okay with scenario 7, but the spending is,
Spending, that's just the spend.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
spend numbers really what we're focused.
When you get $50 million, you're talking pocket change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The first 50 will come harder, the rest of it will be easy.
So it sounds like the average of the group is probably close to scenario 7 total spend. Oh, sorry, Kelly.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you guys. I think just given everything, scenario 6 is probably gonna be our best.
So anyway, Robbie, can I just talk with you offline? So you clearly understand this. Thank you. Thank you.
so that, what I was, like 2.6, we're like in the 2.67 range?
Some of us, not all of us.
Oh, Rennick's in the 5,
I-
Donner in the 1.2 range?
So I.
So I mean, at this point, I think what everyone's saying is that 52 is too much or a lot. Now we're down to basically whether it's 50,200,000, 582 or 70, 77.9.
Right, 267.
2, 6, or 7 is our range. Hopefully we don't have to go.
So maybe we can just, so we can at least eliminate some, let's make some progress.
Scenarios 2, 6, and 7.
Eliminating for sure, scenario 4 and scenario 8.
Yes,
Doing 67.
Which,
I thought
thank
we
you,
were
because I don't want to cut a whole bunch.
I thought we were
Everything's
eliminating
very
1, 5, 4, and 8, and 3. No,
1, 5, 3, 4, and 8.
yes, are gone.
1, 3, 4.
1, 3, 4.
If only somebody had numbered these.
Oh, okay, yeah, need one of these, get the one, yeah, but you want one of these, yeah.
And really, the expenditure budget number is what you land on. How do we share with the communities what we can spend? It really does depend on the deal.
Yeah.
And we are talking about a difference of a few $100,000 in each scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in a pretty narrow range here.
Yeah.
This is good.
It's very,
If we landed in the fish tonight, and we're talking a difference of 500,000, I mean, I think giving themselves some buffer, we might.
Each one with a different deal. Number one.
yeah,
Each
we're
one-
We're not looking at 1, only 2, 6, and 7 are the ones that they want to discuss more. And so I think yours are in there too, right? Would you like number 6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and in the end, we can discuss if you choose to spend $50,212,437. We still can have conversations about what yield we think is most likely to happen, and that would, affect the projected tax rates when we
And
present. to-
I think honestly, we may need to just present both and
So,
keep the uncertainty.
This one.
Hopefully we don't lose their better mind.
Hopefully know better by then, yeah.
I understand.
That may be the.
So with this yield, this one's 7.5, this one.
so Laura, so if we had scenario 6 and we're using the 9452, we're looking at cap holds an equalized tax rate of 1.24 and then equalized rate of 1.3, right?
The capped rate is the same no matter what we do, obviously, but yeah, the equalized tax rate would be $1.30 DOE.
I mean, I think that gets a lot of what everyone wants. And I think, again, that's the December 1st letter number that we're using. I mean,
The $1.30 tax rate, equalized tax rate is still quite low compared to our, neighbors to the south.
it is quite low. If the cap holds, I mean, we're way under. And at that point, we have, at least maybe we have the flexibility to get through, potentially start on like parking lot and the lighting improvements. I feel more comfortable than if we either cut it out or we can't do it. Or even if we can't get it in time, I mean, there's a lot of other smaller projects from the facility company that we feel positions that putting that towards.
Right, so with 2, 6, and 7, I ask if anybody like we'll just do a motion for each one and,
No,
Or you
one
wanna-
motion.
huh?
I think we, do a motion for a dollar amount. It doesn't have to be exactly one of those things.
Okay, so just the dollar amount.
It can be.
Is this for the budget or for the article?
Just for the total budget expenditure or total.
Okay.
Total budget.
Which one are we doing?
We'll see who speaks up first. You get to choose if you go first.
All right.
I'll make a motion for a budget of 49,999,000.
What's the number again?
Peter made a motion for
49,999,000.
And that's for budget adoption.
Wanted that.
And if I second that, Peter, I seconded it so it can get voted down.
Then don't second it.
Do I have a second for a budget number of 49,999,000?
I'll say.
Devin's a second. Any further discussion?
Obviously, people know why I put that out there. Just because it's under 50 million, I'm wondering if people like see 50 million and go nuts. They know that it's the same number, but I just really want to try to get a budget passed.
I think we all want to try this pass.
Okay.
No.
Devin's like, nope. All right, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed?
No.
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 No,
Kelly,
no,
thank you.
Wow. Good try.
Tried.
Right, and
sorry,
it's a good-
Peter.
All
All
right,
right, so,
I'll make a motion.
one. Devin. All right, next motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion for a budget for 50,779,437.
Second.
All right, Devin's the second. For $50,779,437. Any discussion?
Question.
There's only 8 of us.
Devin, what's the advantage of that number over the number that you were putting about a few minutes ago?
This 50,000,007.
No,
Um,
I know it's fine, I know it's 500,000, I know the dollar amount is, but in your mind, what was it?
well, I intend to vote no on this one also. I mean, the advantage here is clearly getting more of the MVU paving project in there, and I totally understand that.
Yeah, I liked it, but I have been an advocate all night for number 6, so I'm not gonna change my mind.
It is number.
It is number 6.
I said, no, I'm gonna vote for this, but I liked what he had said earlier, but I'm not gonna change my mind. Cause he's going off the board. If he was gonna stay with it, I might change it.
Oh. I'm a little dicks tonight. Go ahead, Peter.
So just so people are aware, because Devin worked this up, so if the yield does, with this number, if the yield goes to 91.71, that's an 8.4% increase. And with no cap. So like Joanne said, if that happens, which we've been warned, doesn't mean it'll happen. But we also can't tell the voters that they're only gonna see a 5% increase. They could see as much as an 8.4% increase.
8.75.
8.75.
So that, to me, that's why I think that's just a little too high. I'd like to be down around 5.2.
What's the,
You're saying 5.
Sorry, I'd be around 50, 50 million and 2. 50 million, 212,000. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Seemed like the shutdown, I could go with it.
Joanne, what do you want to say?
Any further discussion on it?
Joanne?
Joanne? No.
So
it's fine.
you're doing your calculations with the yields being 91.71.
Because we're passing a total expenditure budget
Right.
with an unknown of what the
Yeah.
yield's gonna be. So yeah, we're
And
just
I-
trying to look
and
at
I-
it both ways to say
okay.
what with the.
So I'm being a pessimist. This option 6 has been my option. Being a pessimist, not like Toby, who thinks the budget's gonna get passed. I'm concerned of it not being passed and just being able to work with something. So. Apologies for being a pessimist.
Did you see it?
I think it'll pass because
Because we're next gonna go out there with signs and knock on every door.
it's, I'll say if they don't vote for it, I'll call them and then everybody will vote for it.
All right, all those in favor of, 50,779,437, please say aye. Aye.
Hi.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And post.
Yeah.
3. Motion carries 5-3.
We hear Joanne's.
She voted for it.
She voted for it.
Yeah.
I voted for it. All the time.
Joanne's vote counts twice.
I was more worried.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was very hard work. Like, I've never worked with a school board on a budget more volatile. And in terms of information, not in terms of what's in it. I think everybody has very solidly agreed that the things that you all want for the school communities are very important and responsible. And I appreciate that, but I have never been through anything like this. And Laura, I just want to be able to throw some kudos towards her for the entire weekends for the past month that she's spending on throwing scenarios together for everyone. And I know we have more to vote on, but it's adopted your FY 25 budget number. Congratulations.
I've been working on budgets 48 years. And we've had some tough times, but nothing like this. And even on the toughest ones, you knew what the line was.
Yes.
When Dick Snelling was governor, he made some cuts, but you knew what your money was. We have no clue about that. It's sad.
I think it's incredibly difficult. It feels like throwing a dart in the dark, right? Like, you know, is conservative like the best way? Is it, you know, ambitious? Like, it seems like there's no good answer, and guess we'll just have to wait and see. But the one thing I would say is there's a lot that I know the district is trying to do of good. So whatever number we can eventually get through and get past, hopefully we can just carry on the work, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I know there are 3 votes, no votes on this one. I was one of them. And I think it's just a judgment of our risk tolerances, which risks were outweighing which others. And it's because it's all volatile, we don't know, right? And so we're all just kind of going with our gut in that. So now that, you know, this is the number the board picked, there's a lot of great stuff in here. I support every single thing in here. So even though we're divided, I think we've got a board that wants to support this and pass this budget.
I'm glad to hear you guys say that this has been unlike previous budgets. This has really been an experience, so I'm glad to hear you guys say it's a little bit out of the ordinary.
Hopefully.
Right.
Yeah.
Running, she's not gonna come back after this.
Laura, question. Like the number for the parking resurfacing in red.
Just because it was a different number, I wanted to draw attention to the fact that I had changed it from the facility task force meeting when we were talking about just the 500,000 plus the 75 for the lighting.
When we, and I'm not trying to be shady, I'm not trying to be just, when we bring this to the voters and they see what we're spending on, is there a way to massage that into other, like, spread? It's not a real number. We don't have a bid that says $1 million.
Right.
I'm just afraid that people will see this and they say, you're gonna spend over $1 million on paving this year? I just would like to see.
Like, well, not just that, you couldn't,
Divide it up.
couldn't we,
Lighting
in
and the
theory,
paving, then that's under $1 million.
It's a million, you know.
but I mean, in theory, we could put that into salary and benefits if we wanted to. Like, we could put it under,
Your budget is budget. but
Yeah, I'm not trying to change it. I'm just trying to, I know it's not like a number that we.
I think we can definitely get some more information, whether it's square footage or something. We can
Yeah.
draw a map that shows how much surface we have. I mean, if you
Yeah.
pave your driveway right now, I just got a quote, it was like 19 grand. My driveway's like from here to the wall.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think we can do something for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to,
Yeah.
How many square feet we can do for, you know, up to or something.
but the main thing is that number goes under the capital line,
Right.
right? And
Right.
like, that's like what you're saying, you don't have to necessarily tout MVU parking lot, it's capital projects and improvements. And then, you know, we can revisit that at some point, but trying to grow that capital money.
I think the other part that's important to message when we are messaging is that we're trying to avoid a bond because we know that bonds are difficult. We're trying not to wait until we have a 20-year payment and wait for everything to hit there. Or I think that's been the plan of the facility task force to try to avoid that as much as possible.
Well, Julie, Laura, I just want to say thank you. I know this has been a pretty stressful time, and I imagine it's been a lot of work for you just trying to constantly stay on top of this and provide the information. So thank you for what we're doing. I feel like your position and yours is extremely difficult, and thank you for everything you're doing.
So you need to still approve your warning. And there's some changed language in there that we brought to you for the changing the terms of the treasurer, clerk, and moderator.
Yeah, good, 'cause I shut down. I was like so happy.
But
So we approved that already, right? The,
We approved
you
putting on
approved wanting to change the terms.
yeah.
I drafted language, I did share it with
So if we
a school
approve,
attorney. But
we
you have
approve the
to,
warning, that approves that language, right?
yeah. Usually, do we read the warning? Would you like me to read the warning?
Yes, please.
Well, can I just, so the new budget number has been put in there, but also are we confirming the informational meeting on February 27th? I just wanted to make sure before we. Right.
That is not a conflict with the town of Swan. Their joint meeting will be on Monday, the 26th.
Do we want it to still be at 7? Because I know that question's come up a couple times.
I'm interested in this.
That's what we
I don't care.
typically done, right, Don?
Yeah.
Every year since we stayed with seven.
Yep. Just wanted to make sure.
So the warning in on the drive, it doesn't. That I see, it doesn't stagger the clerk and the treasurer and moderator.
It does under Article 4.
It would be in for next year.
It would be
Yeah.
for the next year.
This year it'll still be 1-year terms, they'd have to approve it for.
Oh.
Gotcha. It goes on the ballot this year for 20.
So extending the terms from 1 year to 3-year terms. How does that stagger them though?
Well, do you want me to read the whole?
So doesn't that just, it just extends their 3 terms to 3 years next year?
No,
They're
because
just staggered.
Article 4 would stagger them. So the question is, shall the voters of Missisquoi Valley School District approve extending the terms of the Missisquoi Valley School District treasurer, clerk, and moderator from a 1-year term to 3-year terms, utilizing the following initial staggered terms beginning on town meeting day 2025. Treasurer,
Oh, I
3-year.
don't have that. I'm looking at a different one.
Okay, so that's the new language.
It's linked in the agenda.
It's linked in the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I clicked on.
Yeah.
I-
Oh,
Mine came up.
In the
oh,
agenda,
yeah.
Your problem, Toby.
And so it starts with the treasurer with the 3-year term, the clerk with a 2-year term, the moderator with a 1-year term.
I got it from my agenda, which I got the agenda from the email.
Yeah.
They just probably didn't.
Sorry, Tommy.
So do we want this read to us or are we all?
Is that part of statute? I thought it was, you had to read the.
Usually we read the warning, so if you like, I'll just read it in my very best teacher voice.
Perfect, love it. Let's use your voice.
Morning annual meeting, Missisquoi Valley School District. The legal voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District, consisting of the towns of Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton, are hereby notified and warned to meet and transact the following business by Australian ballot in the respective polling places hereinafter named for each of the above referenced towns on March 5th, 2024, at the polling places and times hereinafter listed. Article 1, to elect from the legal voters of the said district the following officers. A, moderator for a term of 1 year. B, a clerk for the term of 1 year. C, a treasurer for a term of 1 year. D, a Missisquoi Valley School Director for a term of 3 years from Franklin. E, a Missisquoi Valley School Director for a term of 3 years from Highgate. F, Missisquoi Valley School District School Director for the remainder of a 3-year term from Highgate. G, an MVSD School Director for a term of 3 years from Swanton. Article 2, shall the voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District approve the school directors to expend $50,779,437, which is the amount the school directors have determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. Article 3, shall the voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District authorize the Board of Directors of the said school district to borrow money to pay the current expenditures in anticipation of taxes and to sign notes for that purpose. Article 4, shall the voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District approve extending the terms of the Missisquoi Valley School District Treasurer, Clerk, and Moderator from a 1-year term to a 3-year term, utilizing the following initial staggered terms beginning on Town Meeting Day 2025. Treasurer, 3-year term. Clerk, initial 2-year term followed by a 3-year term thereafter. Moderator, initial 1-year term followed by a 3-year term thereafter. Said persons and voters warned are further notified that voter qualification, registration, absentee voting, and voter procedures shall be in accordance with chapters 43 and 51 of Title 17 VSA. The legal voters, Lori, go move your cursor. The legal voters of the school district are further notified that an informational meeting will be held in person at Missisquoi Valley Union High School Library and electronically via Zoom on February 27th, 2024 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of explaining the budget items to the voters. The link to access this virtual meeting will be posted on the MVSD website, mvsdschools.org, and MVSD social media prior to the meeting.
We got a D on that one. Says MVS schools, no D on that. You can see that.
I'm sure Laura's
In the
got that.
URL.
No D on that.
Thank you. Polling places and times, Franklin Town Hall, 5336 Main Street, Franklin, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Highgate Elementary School, 219 Gore Road, Highgate Center, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Swanton Village Municipal Complex, First and Elm Street, Swanton, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And it will be dated this January 29th, 2024, and signed by the Board of Directors present.
Make a motion to approve the warning as read.
Thank you.
With it.
D.
The corrected URL that I see.
I said it.
As read. There you go.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Rick. Any discussion?
The 27th,
Is this one we discussed on?
not a Tuesday. Just discussing the actual. What is that? Is it Tuesday?
It's Tuesday.
So,
And we've checked with Swanton Village that their meeting will be
Okay.
on Monday.
okay, so we are on the same.
Before you vote on triple checking.
Sometimes it's different here for some reason.
But it's one of them.
So we could just run. No.
It was up.
No.
You want to say what that means, it'll be more.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have finance committee meeting
Oh,
prior to that meeting for preparation.
Yes, the joint town and village informational meeting will be Monday, February 26th. at 7 p.m.
we weren't a place, must we? Missisquoi Valley, okay.
All set? All those in favor?
Aye.
Don? Are you in favor of adopting the
Yes.
warning? Okay, thank you. All those opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
Okay.
Future board meeting will be February 6th at the MVU Library at 6 PM. And do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, Peter?
We'll move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Devin. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries
What if
8.
you vote no to adjourn?
8-0.
I know, like, you guys move so fast. We don't miss you.
Got a remote?
All your additional time with me as well.
So-
So I'm not.
We'll let them know.
I think that's.
They are.
Sign this before they leave.
Sign it. Video, JR
Yes.
wanted to do that as informational. Like that, so I think.
Thank you, Julie, for everything today.
Finance. committee